Welcome to the Beau Show. I'm in Las Vegas at FreedomFest 2022, and I'm interviewing a lot of different types of people who are pursuing liberty. One of those people that I interviewed was Sam Sorbo. She's a model, she's an actress, she is the wife of actor Kevin Sorbo, and she's also a parent, which is why she has some very passionate feelings about what she calls education emancipation. I hope you enjoy this interview with Sam Sorbo. Sam Sorbo, thank you so much for joining me today here at FreedomFest in very toasty Las Vegas, right?
It's toasty outside, but it's not bad inside.
Different from Florida. No humidity here, but still hot. Sam, just from actor to actor, since we both share that, we share that common background, so tell me how entertainment led you to what you do today.
Oh, that's a great question, and I have a very good answer for that. But I have to think of it. So I left college to pursue my modeling career so that I could become an actress, which is what I wanted to do originally. And if you step back to high school, I was discouraged from acting because my acting coach in high school had been not successful. She was teaching high school. And so, of course, she taught me that I couldn't be successful because she thought that she was the bee's knees and why didn't she make it? And so nobody makes it. And so I'd been dissuaded from pursuing acting. And when I pursued modeling and I was successful, I realized, well, I can make money. Maybe I should try out this acting thing. Who knows? Maybe that'll work too. So I became an actress. And I think that is what finally made it click to me that our education system isn't the be-all and end-all that it thinks it is. And then when I had kids and my child was in second grade and I realized what a terrible job the really good schools that we moved to were doing, I was like, okay, time's up. I'm out of here.
So in many ways, it took you becoming a parent to realize some of the institutional flaws that were there. It sounds like you saw what was going on. Now, you're now an education freedom advocate and for education emancipation, as you call it. Tell me exactly what that means.
So we have all been school injured. We are all school injured. We've been injured by a system that claims to be educationally minded, but actually is just a system of training to conformity and obedience. And I can prove that. What is education? Can we agree that education is at the minimum a quest for knowledge? Okay, it's a search, it's a quest.
Sounds universal.
A quest for knowledge, okay. What's the first thing you learn to do in school if you want to ask a question?
You have to raise your hand.
Got to raise your hand.
Ask permission.
You have to ask permission to ask a question. You have to draw attention to yourself. A lot of kids don't want to do that. It's actually a barrier, right? This forcing you to do this in order to question is actually a deterrent. In fact, it teaches you the opposite lesson. It teaches you, don't ask questions. Stop questioning. And in fact, the studies show that curiosity is gone. Children ask minimum of 28 questions a day when they're younger. Within 5 years of going to school, there's 0 questions a day. They're done. And children are naturally curious. Why?
Right.
Why?
But you're saying that's being stifled now.
And it's stifled in our education
system. So let's go back.
System.
We know that the education system is broken. What are the sources of that? How did that happen? And when did it happen?
Okay, so there's a couple schools of thought. It was on purpose. There were people at the helm who were driving it, Dewey and others, who were driving the education system and actually wanted to dumb down the populace. We borrowed from the Prussians. The Prussians instituted their quote-unquote education system in order to crank out good warriors. What's the one thing that you need from a warrior? Obedience. You don't want them to question the expert. You want them to just trust the expert. And that's where we are today, right? So that was probably over 100 years ago they started implementing that. And it progressed slowly. And then most recently we see in our schools today, we see the abject loss of sanity. I mean, there's just craziness happening in the schools today. And so we look at that and we go, but that's just crazy. We have to change the schools when we ought to be saying, that's just crazy. And that was produced by the schools. We should get rid of the schools because it produces that craziness. And we all know that it's crazy, but we've been so abused by the system of indoctrination that is our public schools, that is our school system, that we are incapable of even questioning what the schools are doing. We question individual things, but we don't understand yet that the entire system is abusive.
Well, that's
we're like the abused, the battered woman
who doesn't want to speak up.
who won't speak up because he still loves me,
Right.
and he tries, and he didn't mean it, and it didn't hurt that badly, and I deserved it.
My mom was a public school teacher for about 40 years in Shelby County in Memphis, and so I got to, but she put me in private schools, ironically, did not put me in the public school system. And I'm just wondering where the critical race theory, the hypersexualization that we've seen, where is that coming from? Who's instigating that?
Okay, so the Marxists took over our teaching colleges back starting in the 1950s. We defeated Nazism, but we didn't defeat communism. Communism just came over here and embedded itself in the Democrat Party, where it found a very welcome home, frankly. And then the Communist 45, which is the agenda of the Communist Party that was read into the congressional record, in those 45 tenets or goals of the communist agenda, it was take over the school system, make them transmission belts of pornography. There are several of those that have to do with the education system. Make sure that there's pornography in the schools. That's a communist.
Yeah, I remember reading that.
Right? That's part of the communist agenda. So it's not so much where it's coming from. I mean, we ought to understand that this is all communism, pure and simple. But we need to take a step back again and look at it and say, okay, but the system was ripe for the takeover. And so there's something wrong with the system that it allowed that. And part of it is, well, they took the Bible out of schools. Well, when you take the Bible out of schools, you're not taking religion out of schools. That's how it was sold. It was sold as you can't have religion in schools. But it was replacing Judeo-Christian religion with human secularist religion. And really what we ought to do is sue for the destruction of the government school system because it is a religious-based institution. That's what we ought to do.
So, you know, we've seen some states like Florida where we are and Governor DeSantis taking some very proactive legislation. Does that give you hope that now that after wokeism you get some awakening of conservatives? And are you worried that for every action that someone like DeSantis takes, that someone like Newsom is going to do the equal and opposite? I'm seeing as a possibility. There's a thing about, you know, Disney and things of that sort.
Okay, I adore DeSantis because he's taking a strong stand for traditional values and truth and liberty, okay? So I adore him full stop. All of those measures are stopgaps for a gaping wound, right? They're little Band-Aids. They're not, they won't produce anything. But what they, substantially, but what they do produce is this battle taking place on the front headlines. So Newsom, come after him. That's great. You make your headlines, we'll make ours. Your state kills the most babies. You should be aware of that stat.
He seems proud of it.
Right? And he's proud of that. So having the battle in front of everybody so that they see what's going on is great. When DeSantis came out with the Disney thing, that was absolutely brilliant because Disney had to take the stand and say, no, we want to sexualize 5-year-olds. We want to teach them about homosexual activities and lubrication or whatever, right?
It forced their hand.
It forced their hand. That's a brilliant strategy. So I'm all for it. And I think that I know parents who personally have been huge Disney subscribers, lifelong Disney fans. They live close enough to Orlando that they go every other weekend. They have Disney passes, and I mean, they're in and they're out now. They're just out. It's like, oh man, you pushed this too far. Like, we understood that there were some gay people who worked at Disney. That's fine, but don't try to push it on us.